My dear sisters in the Lord, my name is Gerry, Gardner, and I live in Florida, USA, and I have a ministry called Compelled by Grace Ministry. I want to bring you today a message of hope that was given to me and to many of us in our inner healing ministry, and to share with you what inner healing really is. Back when I was saved, which was in 1994, I came to know the Lord and His healing almost all as one place of restoration for me. And in that midst of that, I began to see the broken pieces of my life that needed to be put back together, and I really needed Jesus to do that. Someone shared with me Isaiah 61, which the words I didn't totally understand, but I took the great hope in those. My soul resonated with those in my spirit. And so I want to share with you out of Isaiah 61, where they're speaking prophetically about Jesus. And Isaiah says of Jesus that He came to preach good news to the poor, to bind up the brokenhearted, and to set the captives free, and to bring the prisoners out of darkness. I really needed to hear those words, to be healed of the things in my life that were holding me back from relationship with God and relationship with others. I was struggling to quit doubting myself and to feel the feelings of unworthiness that I had. And I needed to be able to go beyond my doubts, and I needed to know how to trust others, and I needed to know how to trust God. I was constantly feeling like a failure because I had put on my life a vow of perfectionism. Who can be perfect? No one. So it's always like failing. And in that failure, I became very sad and disjointed about who I was. So I needed Jesus, and I really needed Him to come and to speak into my life. I reached out for God, and He was there. And in the midst of that, I found that God's desire has always been to walk with us and talk with us in the wholeness of our body and our soul and our spirit. He wanted that in the Garden of Eden. It was His plan. But what happened? Sin came into the world through Adam and Eve. And because of that, we now live in a fallen world, a world where there's stress and anxiety, a world where lies are constantly bombarding us, and we sometimes don't know what to believe. A world where hurts come. We hurt others, they hurt us, and we live with those hurts. And a world where confusion and wrong thinking get in the way of us being who we're called to be. But see, God's plan never changes. And because of Him, and because He sent His Son Jesus to do healing on this earth, and then to do the ultimate healing, which was His death and resurrection, His death on the cross and His resurrection from the grave, we now have the hope for healing. He said in Exodus, I am the God that heals you, and He meant it. He meant it from the very beginning, and He means it now. Jesus is here with us in every situation, no matter what it is. He said in Matthew 28, I am with you always. What about that do we not get sometimes? He said in Deuteronomy, God says, I will never leave you, nor forsake you. So no matter what has happened in our life, Jesus has been there. He's always been there, whether we knew Him or not. I didn't know Him in that way as a child, but I do now. And so when I ask Him, Lord, why and how did those things happen? He has explanations that He can give me. He has healing that He can bring. He has comfort that He can bring. And so in inner healing prayer, we get to safely come into the presence of God, and we get to bring Him our unhealed hurts. We get to bring Him the unmet needs that we have, things that happened. Unhealed hurts are those things that happen that end up leaving us scarred and wounded. Unmet needs are those things we never, ever got. Things like security, feeling safe, things like being nurtured by our parents. Sometimes those things were lacking in our life. We were abandoned, or we were just ignored. And sometimes we just didn't know we belonged. Those are called unmet needs. Jesus wants those too to be healed. He also knows when we have the questions in our lives. He knows the whys and the hows and all the things that we ask. And sometimes we don't get the answers. And when we hang on to those questions, it causes us to stumble through our life. In the safety of the inner healing, we get to bring the child in us. Many, many times it's the child in us that's crying out for healing. We all have an inner child, the child that went through those experiences in those early years of our life. There are hurts later in our life, but much of the inner healing will focus on those early years. Why the lies that we believe that are steering us in the wrong direction, the things that the enemy puts in our head because he wants to see us lost and off course, the things we don't understand, the hurts that we have. These are all the things we bring to inner healing. In inner healing prayer, we choose to come to Jesus. That's the choice we make. We choose to come to Jesus, and we choose not to accept the hopelessness, and we choose not to accept the shame, and we choose instead to seek freedom for ourselves. His arms are wide open. Jesus is ready to receive us no matter what, and in his presence is where the healing happens. And how does he heal? I've learned through the many years, any way he wants to heal. It's not up to me to tell him how. But often we see that Jesus wants to go to a memory, to a place where hurt came in or the lies came in or where trauma happened. Not because he'll ever ask us to relive that trauma. He won't. He will not. He didn't want it to begin with, so he's not going to have us do it now. But what will happen is that he will meet us there, and he will comfort us, and he will help us see truth instead of the things the enemy tried to put in our heads. He will bring healing in ways that are amazing ways that he will do that. And he will always, always lead us out of that memory. But we'll always remember it with him. And that's the healing of a memory. Maybe in that memory we're going to have to do some forgiveness. Maybe in that memory we're going to have to break a mindset that we developed. Whatever it is, he's going to be there to heal it and to bring us out. And we call that a healing of the memory, and it's done by the Holy Spirit of God, where he takes us. The past, present, future is our way of chronological time, but God lives in his time, his perfect time. One of the biggest obstacles to healing is unforgiveness. We all know what that is. We all have moments of unforgiveness. But we have to come to Jesus with that unforgiveness. And when we do, we first experience how he's forgiven us. That's got to happen first. We have to know that things we've done have been forgiven. And then we can begin to accept that he's forgiven others, even those who hurt us, not because it was right what they did, but because his whole mission was to come and bring forgiveness. And when we do that, then we can love like he loves. We can love with the mercy and the grace, and we can walk in the freedom that forgiveness brings. It's critical. Our freedom depends on it. Lies we believed, I've been talking about those, but they've impacted our whole life. It's like looking through a camera focus that's all smudged up when we believe a lie because we're not seeing the real truth. But we can take the authority of Christ that is in us, and we can stand with Christ, and we can break the power of that lie in our life. And the word says that it is his truth that sets us free. Proverbs 18:21 says that the power of life and death is in the tongue. How many of us know that? How many of us know that our words matter? What we say, what we speak, what we say to other people, what we say over ourselves. Negative words, curses, they're often called curses. Inner vows we make where we say, I will never or I will always. Those are ways that we hold ourselves in patterns that we don't need to be held in. We know in this fallen world that those negative words are going to come, but inner healing combats those negative words because once again, we see them, we acknowledge them, we take authority over them, and when we do, the authority of Christ breaks power that those curses and inner vows have had. And then we are open to the blessings and all the promises of God because our hearts are wide open to receive. There's nothing that Jesus won't do for us if we will just let him and come to him. So inner healing prayer are going to be some of the most intimate moments that you have with the Lord as he lets us bring our hurts to him, as he lets us bring those lies, as he lets us bring the questions. He says he's bigger than any of that. He has the one, greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. So these things of the world will fall at the foot of Jesus. And so I pray right now that we will see Jesus as the only answer to these things, not to go into other directions that take us down paths we don't want to go. I said inner healing prayer changed my life. Well, it's here to change your life too. It changed my husband's life. It changed the life of my family. And in 25 years of being in inner healing ministry, I have watched lives been totally restored. I've watched marriages be restored. I've watched physical healings come because the emotional healing was allowed to happen. In Isaiah 61, I go back to that because when he says our healings come, then these are the promises that he says. He says he will bestow on us a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, a garment of praise instead of the spirit of despair or heaviness. He says that we will be called oaks of righteousness and that he plants us for the display of his splendor. It's very good news. And it is for you and it is for me. And I keep seeking healing for the things in my life. And today I offer you that invitation that you will trust the Lord and begin this journey of healing. God bless each and every one of you and our team. And I hope to see you very soon. Amen.